Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. We are here on Friday, January 24th. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter, and we're super excited to have on the podcast today newly minted New Hampshire Fisher Cats pitching coach, Austin Bibens-Dirkx. Austin, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Congratulations on the promotion. Very exciting for you, third year with the organization, to move up to Double A and kind of continue to climb up the ladder here with the Blue Jays.
Yeah, it was awesome that they had asked me to do so. It's a bunch of guys that I've worked with, projected lineup, I guess. We don't have any solid roster yet, but it's guys that I'm most likely have worked with the last couple of years being in Vancouver, and I'm looking forward to that. We have a bunch of good dudes.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Kind of getting the chance to kind of move your career up as they do as well. But before we kind of get into your career, because I think you probably have one of the most unique journeys of anybody in the Blue Jays organization. Really awesome career. I think Jori was saying you kind of look at, like, I've been everywhere. It's all about you, right? Kind of having been across the world to play baseball is an awesome story. But before we do get into that, I mean, for you moving up with these guys, how cool is that for you to see their progress and, for them to see you progress alongside them through the organization?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is affecting changing guys and helping them get better. So, being able to go through that process with them and continue to help some of the same guys, it might make it even a little easier for me, easier for them. We already have that relationship built, which I think is super important. So being able to kind of progress with some of these guys is going to be awesome, and just it should make things hopefully a lot easier. You don't have to break the ice, you don't have to rebuild, start from scratch and building a relationship, which I value greatly. And being able to affect change is you have to be able to connect with the guy. It's not like if you don't, you're probably going to lose them quicker than not. You say one wrong thing, they're a bunch of really smart kids. Building that relationship with them, I think, is hugely important, in just progressing their career and having them actually trust me and listen to the things I have to say, knowing that I have their best interest at heart.
Yeah, 100%. Kind of with that, I mean, obviously you're moving up to Double A, and the off season is long for everybody. What does the off season kind of look like for you? Whether it's staying in touch with guys, or kind of just getting home and getting away from it all for a little bit. What have you been up to this off season?
Yeah, we we check in. We have to do monthly check-ins. Obviously, with the new CBA and everything, we have the dead period. But guys, and especially guys that I had check in, hopefully some guys that I'll have in Double A, they've been really good about reaching out to me, which is okay. That's acceptable. We're not allowed to really reach out to them, mandate they do anything, but I'd have guys send me some videos and ask me some questions. And, again, I can't really tell them what to do. It's just, um, guiding them with bumpers slightly. So that's kind of been the off season. During the dead period, when I can't really reach out to them, I like to take advantage of, I live in Boise, Idaho. I like to snowboard. Finally gotten back into it now that my playing days are done and my wife will let me. So, yeah, it's been good. It's been a pretty solid off season so far.
Well, I was about to ask kind of that ilk. I mean, just as the off season has progressed, just how you've kind of been able to I guess, just enjoy your time away. But I'm sure there's also a sense of excitement that things are kind of getting back to baseball season almost, right? You mentioned that you're back in Dunedin for a pitching camp.
Yeah, no, I'm always looking forward to it. And guys in the off season, when they reach out, I'm super excited. Especially during the dead period, because I know, like, they don't have to. They can kind of go about their business the way they want to. And it was really good for me, and that guys were actually going about their business and wanted to share that with me and wanted to make sure that we all knew, because when they do that, we put it in a report and we send it off to everybody. So and nowadays, with how limited runways guys have, just because of the whole roster space, 165 dudes domestically, it's good that they stay on top of their stuff. It's not, in years past, you didn't have that roster crunch as much, so you guys had a little longer runway, but now it's like that. So getting back into the swing of things, I'm always happy that guys are reaching out to me, and the season's right around the corner. It's something I've been doing for 20 years, so it's nothing really new to me. It's just looking forward to getting back in with the guys. I like being around the guys. I like helping them get better. So I'm excited for that.
Speaking of that, having had so many years professionally pitching yourself and now getting into coaching, I mean, I do kind of want to get back and look at your journey because you pitched for 17 years professionally before making the switch to coaching. For you being a guy who pitched in Venezuela, in Victoria before, hopping back into the pro ranks, pitching in the minors, pitching with so many different organizations. How do you kind of think that journey has influenced you as a coach and been able to help you relate to these guys who are so young in their careers and kind of hoping to potentially get to a point in the big leagues like you did?
Yeah, I mean, I think it gives me a lot of experience to draw from. I think I've seen the highs of highs. I've been released. It gives me a full breadth of, I've been there. I've struggled. I've been successful. I know the mentality it takes. I know I've gone through 1,000 different pitch grips. So if you're struggling with the pitch, come to me. Like, we can figure something out. So I just feel like it gives me that much more of an, I wouldn't say edge, but just an ability to kind of relate and help guys get better a little quicker just because of my experiences and, my struggles. First off, like that's the biggest, most important thing in my eyes is, guys that the biggest separator for guys that are going to go to the big leagues is it's mostly up here. And I tell these guys, like every single one of these guys has way better stuff than I ever did. I think one thing I did well was, kept my mentality, stayed positive, kept my confidence. And, that's one thing I try to hammer home as much as possible. And it's like, look, I struggled, but I went through 2 indie ball stints and then got to the big leagues. So, I mean, it's possible. We have guys like Jonathan Lavallee, got released and now he went to the fall league, dominated. He's who knows where he's going to start. But he got up, he was with me last year, went to Double A, did well. So, it's just because you get released, just because you struggle, it's not the end of the world. And I try to portray that to the guys.
Well, kind of along those lines, is there one thing that maybe you learned in your playing career that you have really tried to impart on, every pitcher that you've had the chance to really work with closely?
Yeah, I mean, metrics are huge now. But for me, I try to really emphasize execution over metrics. Like I've seen really bad pitches metrically be punch outs. I've seen really bad pitches metrically turn into double play balls. So it's guys, and it's just the way it is now. I mean, everybody, you see all the videos online. It's guys are all about the velo, all about the ride on their fastball. If they have a sinker, it's all about the horizontal, and they're immediately staring at the iPad. And that's one thing I'm trying to kind of, not that we don't use it because I think it's a great tool, but just because it's not one perfect pitch, if you put it in the right spot, you're more likely going to get the outcome that you want. And so that's something that I really try to hammer home is execution over metrics because, you get tired. Baseball is hard. You're not going to be perfect. Like, so if you're really trying to think of strictly metrics, you're doing yourself a disservice. So, because you're not going to repeat perfectly every time. We're human.
For you, kind of, having had so many different stops and anything like that, obviously the big league experience, I'm sure is your favorite, but I'm curious to know if there are, any of your stops along the way that kind of stand out to you as a stop that really helped you in your career or kind of changed your path to eventually ending up in the big leagues with Texas or kind of helping you to get to where you are today.
Yeah, honestly, I would say winter ball. Venezuela, when I first started going down there, was insane. Like insane. I started opening day my first year down there, and there were 30,000, 35,000 people in the stands. Like,
Wow.
and they're all screaming. Like, they all love baseball. You get to two strikes, they're ponche, ponche, like the whole crowd. So, like, I think experience wise, what's going to get you ready for the big leagues is pitching in winter ball where every game matters, where it's only about winning, like the big leagues. Obviously, at our levels, it's a lot about development, but I think that's one thing I enjoyed the most. It's like you really learn to compete. You really learn to kind of drown out the extra noise because there's a lot of it. And you go out there and you try to win. And I think that was one of the biggest, separators. And guys ask me all the time. It's like, what got you ready for the big leagues? I said, winter ball. You want to go have an experience. You want to go. You're pitching against some of the best guys. Like that year in Venezuela, I pitched against Magallanes, who's like the Yankees of Venezuela. They had Altuve at second, Juan Rivera at first, Andrews at short, Pablo Sandoval at third. Like, it's not like you're pitching against slouches. These are all big league all-stars. And so I think just competition-wise, environment-wise, I think it really got me ready for pretty much anything.
The point you make there also is interesting, that the importance of winning in development is something that you pointed to as something that's important. I mean, we've spoken with other guys in the past, guys that you've worked with, right? That were with the Canadians when they won, and have talked about the importance of being on a championship team and what that did for them personally.
Yeah, no, I think learning how to win, learning how to compete, be successful, and win games is part of that, development process. Obviously, you want to develop pitches, you want to develop mentality, you want to develop mechanics, but I think learning how to win and be successful and how to handle that, what it looks like, and how to go about your business in that kind of environment, a winning environment, is huge. You see guys that go to the big leagues and they don't know how to succeed. They don't know how to win because they've never been on a winning team. And so they get put in moments. It's like, oh, it's crunch time. Well, all I've known is losing. So, that's just kind of what I expect. And that to me is, also a disservice. It's like, yes, it's development and you don't want to win just like to get away from development to win. But also I do feel like part of developing is learning how to win and be successful in any kind of environment or, close game, not close game, this just kind of everything encompassing.
This episode of the Bird's Eye View podcast is brought to you by BioSteel. Use code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order at biosteel.ca. Again, that's code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order. For all your high performance hydration needs, visit biosteel.ca. Thank you again to BioSteel for sponsoring today's episode.
One thing I did want to ask you about was kind of your experience getting to the big leagues. I know obviously we kind of have the tools today to kind of like look up everything. So in our research for this, we were kind of looking at, some of the strikeouts and everything. And obviously, there's the Miguel Cabrera one where you had him looking silly in your second big league game. I don't know if that's like one of your career highlights, getting that punch out, but is there kind of anything that really stands out to you about your time in the big leagues and being able to pitch for a couple years with Texas?
Yeah, obviously those are really cool. Punching out Miggy in my second game, it was my second strikeout, I believe. I wish it were my first because that would be electric. My last one was Trout, so that was also cool. I did that with a pulled oblique.
Oh,
So that was fun. But that was my last strikeout in the big league. So that's kind of a cool thing for me. But honestly, I feel like pitching in places like Boston, I did that during this seventh inning stretch. So they're seeing Sweet Caroline while I'm warming up. It was absolutely electric. Pitching against, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, Scherzer. like getting the win against him, also electric. Pitching in Yankee Stadium, going 7 innings there, going 7 innings against Scherzer. Those are kind of the games that really, really stick out. Obviously, my debut, but I think my wife got more TV time than I did during my debut. So, I mean, it is what it is. But no, it's yeah, those are kind of the highlights that really, really stick out. Obviously, punching out future Hall of Famers, beating a future Hall of Famer is cool. Pitching at Yankee Stadium, I gave up a homer to Judge, but it was the only run I gave up, so I wasn't too angry. But yeah, those are the really, really the ones that stick out. But I would say, people ask me all the time, where's your favorite place? Boston. Like I got to warm up while they were singing Sweet Caroline. The atmosphere is electric. It was loud. Like that was awesome.
That's really cool. Kind of with that, I mean, for you kind of being a guy who has had such a long journey to the majors, having to go to two independent teams, pitching with so many different organizations, I kind of want to ask, like, what was it like when you got the call, and what were the emotions like in that moment that you kind of finally realized that dream of becoming a big leaguer?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. It was definitely emotional. You know, my wife and I both started crying. So, it was just, I had fought tooth and nail, been released, a couple indie ball stints, but I started practicing my signature when I was 7 years old, and I knew what I wanted to do. And, that was kind of my driving factor. Luckily, I had a great support system, which I think is hugely important. This game mentally, physically is a grind. Bus rides grind. So, like, having a good support system, but I think it all, came to ahead when Bannister gave me that call in Seattle. We were just at the hotel, kind of waiting to hear if I was going to get activated or not. And he gave me the call, and we both kind of broke down. So,
That's an incredible story. That's like again just the perseverance to be able to make your big league career after so many places in between. I did want to touch as well. I mean, you spent some time in the Blue Jay system as well, right? Obviously, it was is brief in relative terms, but do you have any memories from that time?
yeah, I mean, I still talk to quite a few of the guys that I met here. I had some great teammates, guys that I saw back here with the Jays, Casey Lawrence, Marcus Walden, who I still keep in touch with. A lot of guys, Aaron Sanchez, a lot of guys that I've played with the Blue Jays have become, guys I still communicate with, which I think is really cool. You don't always get that. Sometimes you're in and out of a place, especially when you're a free agent like every year. So you don't necessarily get that too frequently, but I've created a lot of long-lasting relationships with the guys here, and I think that's probably one of the most memorable aspects of that's why I like to do it. I like to be personable. I like to be, having good teammates, be a good teammate, all things I stress as a coach. I think they matter. And one of the reasons that I tell guys, like, I got to stick around because, I was a good teammate. I had good teammates that supported me. You do that for others, your leash is going to be a little longer than the guy that's a jackass. So that's kind of how I go about it.
Did that attitude, do you think you kind of knew that you were going to end up in coaching afterwards?
Yeah, I kind of, if I'm being honest, I never really wanted to have a real job, and like
Yeah, neither did
just
we.
and so I've been fortunate enough that I haven't had to go that route yet. Hopefully it never happens, but you never know. The saying that I've heard now that I'm a coach is, you get hired to get fired as a coach. So I mean, we'll see. Hopefully that's not the case, but yeah, I had an idea of, wanting to go into coaching early. That's one thing that, when I was still playing, I took advantage. When I played with the Dodgers in 21, I know they're at the forefront of the analytics stuff, and analytics were never my friend, but I knew I needed to learn some stuff. And so I took advantage of it, kind of prepping for getting into coaching. I knew my career was waning, and I needed to take advantage while I could.
I kind of want to ask for you, kind of going from, like you mentioned, playing with the Dodgers in 21, and then kind of I believe you pitched in Mexico and the Dominican as well after that. What kind of was the switch that led you to coaching, and how was it that you landed with the Blue Jays?
Yeah, honestly, the switch was my shoulder started barking when I was down in Mexico. Success wasn't there, and I knew I wasn't getting any younger, and it was just kind of like, I guess, it might be that time as much as I don't want it to be. But it was something that I was just like, I think it is time. I had a kid going off and playing winter ball every off season. It's kind of no longer a viable option. And so it's just like, yeah, let's try getting into coaching. And so I reached out to orgs that I respected, ones that treated me well, ones that I felt like, had the same kind of values that I would want to have. It's an interview of me just as much as I would interview them. You don't want to be I don't want to be anywhere that I hate. I want to be around good people. I want to be around, values that I believe in the coaching, you know, realm. And so that's kind of how I went about that. And I talked to quite a few teams. A lot of the teams, like I interviewed for quite a few AAA jobs because that was open for probably 3 or 4 different teams. And obviously, with no coaching experience, that didn't really pan out too well. I think I did well on the interviews from, my feedback, but it's just like, hey, you haven't coached. We can't really put you at the level below the big leagues. And so, which is understandable. But, I talked to Frank Herman here with the Jays, and he was kind of like my first point of contact. And, had went through the interview process and got offered the bullpen job in Vancouver, and I was happy to take it. Didn't come with benefits or anything, but it was just like, you're told. I went to a career development summit with the MLB PAA, and one of the things they stress is just get your foot in the door. Just however you can do it, get your foot in the door, and let things play out from there. So I got that opportunity. I took it, and I'm very grateful for that because I think it's been great. The guys we have here, like it's exactly the way I envisioned transferring from playing to coaching.
That's awesome. And I mean, obviously, the 2 years you were in Vancouver, very successful. 2023 win the Northwest League Championship, and then make it back to the final last year. What was it like for you to be in Vancouver? I know obviously you're a West Coast guy, so like pretty close to home there. What would you sum up your Vancouver experience like?
Yeah, I mean it was awesome. The league, it's a 6 team league, so it's you're facing the same teams over and over again. So the scouting reports, especially at the A ball level, they don't really make adjustments that quickly. So it stayed pretty consistent. Being close to family, honestly, was huge. My parents still live in Kaiser, Oregon. My wife's dad lives in Kaiser, Oregon. We play in Eugene, which is like an hour. We play in Hillsborough, which was 40 minutes.
That's
So
awesome.
like the ability to see family and my wife and kid pretty frequently was helped it a lot. It
Yeah.
made the season go by quick. We got to hang out. This next year, that's going to be a challenge. So, but I feel like that was kind of the best part of it is, and we're on our own little literal island over there. Everybody else is
Yeah.
here on the East Coast, and we're kind of on the West Coast, so we're able to kind of do our own thing. So it makes it good. I feel like just the environment to help develop guys there because we are so far away. We don't have necessarily people in our ears all the time. We're able to have some autonomy and go about our business the way we feel like we should, and it was very successful.
Well, Vancouver's also had a lot of guys come through the ranks in the last few years that have had a lot of success. I mean, I think of a guy like Kenji Rojas. Zach and I talked even before the before we hit the record button. There's a host of other big names. we were joking before. Are you the whisperer here? Have you turned these guys into something or
I would
something
like to
else?
think I have something to do with it. But ultimately it comes down to the guy. Like if the guy wants to get better and is willing to put in the work, that's the deciding factor. I might have a little more, you know, experience in failing and knowing how to get out of those failures. So I think I could help guys along that. But yeah, ultimately it comes up down to these guys' work ethic. Like last year, we had a bunch of non-drafted free agents, D3 guys that, you know, were not expected to do much, and they were really good. And a lot of it has to do with their work ethic and, you know, not so much me. I can point them in the right direction, but they have to do the work. And, you know, we had a bunch of guys that were hungry, and I think that's what it takes.
I know kind of by the end of the year you guys had like an offensive line of a starting rotation there with, just all these dudes that are like 6'5", 6'6" kind of thing. I don't want to make you like pick any favorites or, pick between them all because I'm sure, you have great relationships with everybody. But is there anybody that you really had a great relationship last year that you saw improve a ton that you're really proud of, kind of the work that you did and the work that they did, as far as the strides to being successful on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really pick a favorite that I
Yeah,
do. I have a good relationship with all of them. You know, some of the guys that I feel like made the biggest strides would be Amalfi,
yeah,
Lavallee, um, guys that, you know, started off not so hot and then, you know, kind of caught fire. Amalfi went from being really bad. We made some mechanical changes, mindset changes, and all of a sudden he was pitcher of the month in the league. So, you know, I feel like he was probably one of the biggest turnarounds that we actually put our hands on the most, which was cool. Lavallee was kind of the same thing. Um, you know, Durs, I know he left me fairly early. He's one of my favorites. Just, I mean, he's fun to be around, but like when it's business time, he locks in and gets after it. Grant Rogers is probably the biggest clown I know. But he's so much fun to be around, but also like there is a line. I'm gonna mess around, mess around, mess around. And when it's time to get to work, he's still joking, but he takes it very seriously, which is awesome. You know, because I feel like especially down in the bullpen. When I was bullpen coach, it's really hard to stay locked in for 9 full innings straight through. You have to enjoy what you're doing. You have to, have conversations, enjoy each other's company down there. Don't pay attention to, while we're hitting necessarily. Like you guys can do whatever, but when we're pitching, you should probably understand what the hitters are trying to do, stuff like that. But yeah, well, I feel like our whole group last year was awesome. And my favorite part, and that's one thing that I've tried to explain to the higher ups here, is the culture that we were able to build in Vancouver and the way the guys actually supported each other was huge in success. That's one thing when I was coming up was not. It's everybody was kind of competing. "Ah, I hope this guy sucks so I get an opportunity to,
yeah.
you know, and that's something that I think helps drive success for everybody is that cumulative love and care for each other. And that's something that we did, I think, very, very well the last couple of years in Vancouver.
That's really cool to hear. Obviously, it's better when things are going well and everybody's enjoying their time together. I was in Vancouver for like a couple days and got to talk to some of the guys, and it seemed like, just a really great atmosphere there. So, really cool. I kind of want to ask for you, having been, a guy who filled so many roles in your career, whether that be a starter, long man, kind of closing games. Does that help you with your ability to kind of relate to everybody on a pitching staff?
Yeah, I think it does personally. I know the mentality, and I would say that, I started my career off as a closer. My mentality was probably not that of a closer. Closers need to be psycho and have a whole different like alter ego side to them that, just was not really, I'm happy go lucky. I want to, hang out with the boys. I don't really want to get angry, but I feel like that's a whole nother animal that you have to attack. But my ability to kind of relate with the guys because of I've been there and I know that mentality. It's like, all right, I know like Durs. I had to have a conversation with him early last year. Tolhurst. Sorry, I don't know if you guys know who I was referring to.
I
Anders
was
Tolhurst.
trying
Durs.
to trying to put it all together, but
Yeah, but I had to have a talk with him, kind of at the beginning of last year because he was going to be one of our dudes later in games, and his mentality was not that of a late inning guy, and it's like, look, this is what we kind of have for you, and you need to kind of figure this out. Obviously, that's a nicer version of the way we probably had that conversation, but that is, kind of the way because I had been there, I know that mentality that it takes. What he was doing was not going to work very well, just kind of in general. And having that conversation. So, and with starters, it's the same kind of thing. It's like, all right, for me, and I learned this in Venezuela. It's you don't pace yourself. You just go as hard as you can for as long as you can. I mean, nowadays in the big leagues, they want starters to go 5 innings. So that's not too much to ask. It's not like they're trying to get you into the seventh or eighth unless you're a dude. So, like go as hard as you can for as long as you can. Long relief, that's just, yeah, go eat innings. I've done that. It's like, all right, you might get beat up a little bit. That's going to be part of it. We need you to get through this amount. You have to be okay with that. You did your job. You helped the team and being a little selfless kind of in that role. So, yeah, because I've done those things, I can have those conversations with those guys.
for sure. Looking ahead to 2025 here, obviously now in New Hampshire, what are kind of your goals for 2025, and what are you most looking forward to as you join the Fisher Cats here?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the challenge. Obviously, it's no longer a 6-team league; it's 6 teams in each division, and so kind of expanding our who we're playing, I think is going to be cool. Obviously, some of the teams are the same teams that we had, and we're going to see some of the same guys that we saw this last year. But I think that's going to be something I'm looking forward to is the challenge of that. Um, Going in like goals for this year, I know New Hampshire has been not very good the last couple of years. So just being better than that would be great. I'm not gonna say I want to go win the championship. Obviously, that's always the end goal, but my job, I want to get guys better and I want to get guys out of New Hampshire. And if that means we struggle a little bit as a team because of it, because we're moving guys on to AAA or to big leagues, it is what it is. So I don't like to put I want to win the championship as a goal. I want to make the guys good. If they stay with us, if they're good, we're probably going to be successful. So, I think that's always the way I go about it. I'm very player first. When it comes to absolutely everything, I'm going to side with the player a majority of the time. And so, I want to make sure that they are in a good spot. And if they're in a good spot, the team's going to be in a good spot. So we won't have to really worry about it. But yeah, I like being honest with the guys and myself and knowing that, you know, if we win the championship, honestly, that's awesome. And we did something that hasn't been done in a while there. So, um, but yeah, no, I think that my biggest goal is just to continue with the guys that I've had, getting them better, getting them to the next level and or the big leagues. And, as a team, if we lose games because we're moving all our best players, it is what it is, but, yeah, so I don't like to put those, I want to win the championship, this goals. That's
if
not,
you're advancing guys, it's still a win because it means that you're improving them.
yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that I wouldn't necessarily be I think things are looking up, but that's just me as an outsider. But I do have one last kind of question for you. I know
Yeah.
that the world of baseball, the world of coaching, a lot of the time it is short term, as you mentioned, you get hired to get fired. But for you, do you have any long term goals in terms of coaching?
Yeah, I would love to be on a big league staff. It took me 12 years to get there as a player. I'm hoping it doesn't take me that long as a coach, but it is what it is. I'm gonna go about my business and try to. It's about player development. It's a PD, so develop the players, but we also need to continue to develop as coaches. So I know I have things I need to learn in biomech area that is something that I know I need to be better at to be able to get to those positions. So yeah, I think ultimately I would love to be a bullpen coach, pitching coach in the big leagues. A coordinator, I like to affect change in people for the better. I think a coordinator would be a great role to do that. You have an entire organization that you can kind of lead and help. So I think that would be another cool avenue. But I do like being in pants. I do like being on the field. So I think like if I had to pick one, it would be in the big leagues as a bullpen coach or a pitching coach for sure.
That's really cool, really awesome, and we took up a little bit more of your time than I said we were going to. So we really
We had some
appreciate you taking
technical
the time.
difficulties. It's fine.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to do this. We, of course, wish you the best of luck in 2025. We'll be following along and be rooting for the Fisher Cats and for you as you kind of progress throughout the rest of your career here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I like your little shoe collection back there too. It looks
Thank
good.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate that. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribe and like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. You can find us there at the Bird's Eye View pod. If you're listening along on the podcast provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow all of us on Twitter. I am at Worden_Zach. Jori is at Jori Negin-Shecter, and the pod is at BEV_pod. Thank you again to Austin Bibens-Dirkx for taking the time to do this today. Really enjoyed our conversation with him. Great stuff there. Thank you so much for listening.